Good evening, YouTube. This is Tom doing a little show and tell. My son and I drove up north from Valatia up toward Hoosick Falls, New York. Hoosick, New York is north, just south of the Adirondacks by Saratoga, New York. And they had a little ham fest going on up there that I found out about. It was at a little school up there and not huge. It was in a cafeteria. Had about, a bunch of tables, people selling radio stuff. And this is related to the trip, but indirectly related to the trip. But it's a show and tell. I have no radios. Did not buy any electronics while I was up there. Just went for the trip and for the ride. My son loves reading, which is a good thing. He loves books. So we stopped at a bookstore up there that's in an old barn. It's I forget the name of it. I think it was Dog-Eared Books in Hoosick, New York. And it's in a barn, and an old fella runs it, and he's got a huge wood-burning stove in there, and it's 2 stories of old books, tons of them. And we had a lot of fun in there just going through this bookstore on the way up to this ham fest. And he got a bunch of books, and I got a bunch of books, and that's pretty much what this little video clip is going to be about, is the books. So if you're not interested in books, well, you might not be interested in this, but I thought I'd do a little fun show and tell. It is somewhat radio related because I went looking for electronic books and indeed found some, as you can see in front of you on the screen. This is a bit of a story on this book, which I found incredibly interesting. This is a book, Electronics for Boys and Girls, and this was published in... and I will find it, in London and New York, in 1944. It's not going to focus. You'll take my word for it. Copyright 1944. Now I'm going to read something in the front of this. This book is produced in full compliance with the government's regulations for conserving paper and other essential materials. So it was published during World War II when they were conserving papers. This is a kid's book on electronics. Within the pages of this book, I found these stamps. My theory is a father bought the son his book. He went to World War II to Germany, sent the kids stamps home. These are German stamps from 1922 from Germany. And they are uncirculated. They're in really good condition, and they are from 1922. And I'm going to show you the screen. Let me see. I'm just getting it up on the computer in front of me. I apologize. I did have this almost ready to go, but I wanted to make sure. So I searched for the name on the stamps, found out what they were, and here's what we find. I'm going to take my camera down. Sorry, I'm going to do the hand thing. I'll try to be as steady as possible. And I'll try to get it in here. Okay, so this here is a 40 mark stamp from 1923. Similar design. If we come up to these, there's 3 mark, there's 4 mark. That's a 1922. You'll notice this one here where my mouse is a darker gray color. If we go up here, there's more that are similar, different colors, different numbers. And where is it? There it is. This one here, I will zoom in on it. You'll notice it has a dark green ink with a light green background on these edges where my mouse, well, you can't really see my mouse, but over here, there's a light green undercurrent. So there's 2 colors in this. It's 2-tone. And it's a 4 mark stamp. And here's the stamps I found in the book. I don't know how well. Yeah, we're really going to be washed out. Let me try the lighting. That's better. That's better. That's the same one. They're German stamps. They date from 1922. They say Deutschmark, Deutschreichmark, Number 4, these are uncirculated. They're still hooked together. They still have some of the original paper that was connected to them. And this is all in German. I don't read German. And these numbers, I'm guessing, are numbers of how many stamps were in the row or something, 16 and 20. And they were in the pages of this book. I don't think they're hugely valuable. Some of the ones that had bigger numbers on them, these all have number 4 on them, so they're low number. There were some that had 30s and 40s on them, which I think is how many Deutschmarks you would have paid for the stamp. They're fairly valuable. These, I saw a couple of these at $2 to $3 range. But I'm giving them to my son, actually, who went to the bookstore with me. I said, you can keep the stamps. He loves books and stamps and things, so he's getting those. I'm going to keep the book, but I thought it was really cool that my theory being, anyway, that the kid who owned this book's father went away to World War II, I'm guessing, could have been a boy or a girl, and likely got these stamps sent home from Dad, put them in the pages of this book back in the 1940s, forgot about it, and they've been in this book until I pulled them out all these years later in 2018. Now, they're pretty well preserved. They were, you can see the paper on that one that was stuck to the page of the book. So you can see the paper from the book on there. I didn't damage the stamps. I was really careful. I'm like, I'd rather rip the book than rip the stamps, and I carefully got them out without hurting the adhesive on the stamps. The stamps still have shiny adhesive on the back. So I thought that was really cool. Okay, a couple other little things. Picked up this one. This is an Electronic Fundamentals Military Manual from 1944, from World War II era. And, of course, it's an electronic book, so I grabbed it. Says on the front, ComSect. I assume that means communications section. It was used in some military communications section in some military unit, Army unit. Here's what I found interesting in this one. It is published in 44. Somebody took notes in it. And what I thought initially were regular notes, I actually think somebody was getting this thing ready to be edited and to be reprinted in a newer edition or something, because, and I don't know how well, now I'm going to be washed out again. I do apologize for my lighting. There's pencil marks in the edge of this. It says leave 2-inch space around this illustration. Okay, and then if you go further, we will find some more annotations in pencil. There's a little bit of underlining there. I gotta find it now. Basically, what they did is they crossed out the numbers on some of these paragraphs and they rewrote them, and they wrote arrows to new paragraphs, like where they were going to be moved to in a new edition. Here we go. The way these are circled in pencil, but not just the circling, they've crossed out the illustration numbers, and then they've corrected this here. This is the interesting one. This illustration up here has an arrow going down to here, like they wanted to move it in this edition, and it says 3-inch space here. So I think they were planning on moving this illustration down to here with a 3-inch space between these paragraphs. And another one down here, it says 3-inch space. I know you can't read all that as well. Some stuff has things written, crossed out, like the word paragraph, and it says above, because they were going to move the text around in the book. Same thing here, leave 3-inch space. They're like editing marks. So I think this was probably being revised in pencil for a possible reprint in a new edition. It would be interesting if I could ever find the new edition to see if they made the changes that were made in pencil. Here's another one. 3-inch space up here with an arrow down. They want it down here below this paragraph instead of above it. They changed figure 10 to figure 8. So they were editing it. So I thought that was kind of cool. And it's a nice book about just electronics, and it's fundamental electronics. Starts with batteries and simple circuits, goes through wavelengths, current, Ohm's law, all the basics. Good stuff. So I thought that was neat. And this one is a library book from a college, the Bennington College, Transistors, Applications, and Principles. And this dates from 65, and it has all different things about transistors. And I read a little bit of the beginning of this. It talks about the history of transistors, how they work, and it's just a really good foundational book on how transistors work, which I want to learn more about transistors. I've only worked with tubes. I don't know a lot about them. And it shows you the cutaway of a germanium transistor right there, what they do inside, and more of them here. And all the theory of transistors, the base, the emitter, all the stuff, how they work, fundamentally how they work, and how they're constructed. So that's really cool. This is a neat one. Popular Mechanics, a do-it-yourself book. Electronics Made Easy by Lothier Stern. And this dates from the 50s, and it's got tons of projects to build. Starts out with how it works, radio and electronic projects, modifications to equipment, servicing your radio, high fidelity, transistors. So it starts with tube equipment. It goes into, starts with basic electronic theory, the battery again. They always start with batteries, don't they, in these books. How plates work in a capacitor, how the electrons charge on either side of a capacitor, on the plates, all that stuff. And this one's good in that I thought it was interesting. It's got two tones ink. There's red ink, and it's actually printed in red and black ink, which back then was expensive to do. You know, they didn't have mimeograph machines and copiers that did multicolor. When they'd have to run this through a printer and print the red separate from the black ink, and it's got tons of illustrations and projects to build. Just a cool book. I thought that was good. The Handbook of Solid State Troubleshooting. I thought that will come in handy for working on the Sony ICF 2001. That's one of my future projects. I had to chuckle, though, when I started reading this. It says it's written for the beginner, sort of. Written in 76, by the way. But I got to find it now. Here it is. It is assumed, I don't know if you'll be able to read this, but it is assumed that the student has completed courses in basic electricity, electronics, radio theory, TV theory, and elementary digital computer theory. It is also helpful if the student has taken a previous course in electrical and electronic instruments and measurements. However, an alert student can assimilate this text satisfactorily with superficial knowledge of instruments gained from previous courses in physics and basic electricity and electronics. Mathematics have been held to a minimum. Well, that's good. And graphical treatments of quantitative considerations are being utilized in this book. So how much of this I'll digest, I don't know. I am not an electronics expert, but I try to learn and I try to read these books. I got a lot of other ones. I have more than I've read too, believe me. But I've bought some over the years that they're hard to follow. Honestly, if you don't have a foundation in the math that they use and stuff, they're hard to read. This one is looking fairly basic. Peak to peak voltages there. Mixer, yeah, a diode, yeah. So maybe I'll be able to learn something from that one. We'll see, hopefully. Finally, this is the only thing that I bought from the Ham Shack. Well, I bought two books from the not the Ham Shack, the Ham Fest. You may recognize this author. I did immediately. Joseph Carr. He wrote a lot of books on radio back in the late 80s, early 90s. He unfortunately passed away. At least one of his books is free on the internet. I don't know if it was ever published free, but you will find it for free in a PDF form if you search Joseph J. Carr. I think it was, I want to say, edition number 4 of one of his books. It's out there on the internet. I have downloaded it and read it, not read the whole thing. But he is a great author of radio books and an electrical engineer. He wrote for QST magazine and all that. And I got this one because it reminded me of course, of West Hayward, of course, and all his books. It's a similar type of a book, RF circuit design. Now, I figured this was going to be all about circuits and radio, but believe it or not, there is quite a section in here on antennas. And I think he is, if I'm not mistaken, he's written books just on antennas. This has stuff on propagation. Those are the circuit ones, but like the last third of this book, I think, propagation is on antennas. Yeah, this is all antenna stuff here. A multi-band wire vertical antenna without traps. Cool looking stuff. So he goes into antennas, transmatching units, sloping antennas, dipoles, the whole thing. So that looks like a really good book. Oh, look at that. Some neat illustrations there. Arc generators. There's a ship room from 1920. Is that the Titanic? It reminds me of the Titanic ones I've seen. If you've ever seen pictures of the Titanic radio room, it looks similar to that. Although I don't. That just says shipboard radio room. It's not the Titanic necessarily. But anyway, that's a cool book. And then another book which I don't even have in here. I left it out in the other room. I bought it for my son. My youngest son is learning to fly in school. I think I mentioned that. He's taking aeronautics in school, and he's literally flying a plane during school. They take him over to the county airport, and he's learning to fly. He will graduate with a private pilot license. And I bought him a book on radio use for the pilot. I'm trying to get him into ham radio. And it's actually not about ham radio. It's about using radio communications that are built into airplanes and effectively having good ground to airplane communications. But I think he'll enjoy that. So that's it for my little show and tell of books. We had a fun time in the Hamfest. We did not win the radio they were giving away. They were giving a little handheld radio away. I entered the drawing for that. And we just had fun walking around, looking at stuff, and talking to a few people up there, and then came home. And I think the most fun we had, though, was the book barn, when we went to the book barn and found these books and these cool stamps. So that's it from the Ham Shack tonight. No radio electronics, just a quick little show and tell. Thanks for watching, everybody. This is Tom. Have a great night. 73.